I think that ties hand in hand with transitions, because it's scary. Change is scary, but you just have to embrace that and know that on the other side of change is, something wonderful.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of As Is To Be. I'm Shawn, and I'm joined here with Carl.
Hey, how y'all doing? How you doing, Shawn?
Good. I'm doing good, brother. And we have a guest today. We have Mukhtar Kadiri. Welcome, Mukhtar.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Mukhtar is a senior technology leader. He's a lecturer and a true visionary in cloud computing, and a founder of WorkTipsPro. Previously, he managed projects in the energy sector, both in Texas and Dubai, and then he transitioned to the healthcare sector, where he's currently managing technology-related projects in this field. So, thank you again for joining us, Mukhtar.
Thank you. Thank you for that very undeserving introduction. Thank you.
Well deserved, Mukhtar. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
I gotta tell you, Mukhtar, it's really a pleasure to have you on the show. Last year, I was actually searching on YouTube for advice and insights on developing new habits in myself, especially with the changes we've been going through in 2020. And I specifically, I was looking for developing new habits, and I found your video, and I learned a lot about how to make habits stick, specifically with a tactic of habit stacking. So it's super cool to be on our channel here today with you. I found your channel overall was a wealth of invaluable advice. So thank you.
Thanks. I'm glad that you found it useful. It's something that I like to do as a hobby, and I'm trying to see where it takes me.
So tell us more about yourself, and how did you get into your role?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of my my background, I guess I'm gonna go back. You mentioned that I was in oil and gas tech, and then I think you mentioned that, I'm not sure, but so right now I'm in healthcare tech, but before that I was in oil and gas tech. And how did I get into oil and gas tech? So I'm just going to go back to my college years. So I started out studying electrical engineering and computer science, and then I switched to petroleum engineering. And when I finished, I had this dual background in computer science and petroleum engineering. So a company in the oil and gas sector decided to hire me because of that unique background. So that company placed me in the software division. It's an oil and gas technology. It's an oil and gas service provider, but they had a software section, and they put me there. And my role was basically to serve as the person in between the developers and the end users that were petroleum engineers, right? So the developers, they needed to be able to develop software that's very relevant to petroleum engineers, and the petroleum engineers needed somebody to be able to train them and support them on how to use the software application. So that was sort of my role. So this was in Houston, Texas. So I was there for about almost a year, and then I got transferred to Oman in the Middle East, and I was in Oman for a few years, well, 5 years. Not a few years, and when I was there, I was there in a more consulting role, because now I was sort of there with the client, on client location, day in, day out, right? So this was a bit different from my role in Houston, where I was sort of in the comfort, or within the comfort of the office. So this was a bit different. I had to sort of change my mindset, because in a consulting role, you're sort of there representing the company. You can't just think, okay, in your narrow, silo. You sort of have to be able to represent the company, to represent various departments, and to sort of think broader than your own area of expertise. So that was challenging, and it was also rewarding. So I was in Oman for 5 years, and basically we're delivering technology solutions. We call them production optimization solutions that was used by oil and gas companies to basically manage their entire oil field operations. So these were very, very complex systems, right? So just for example, a company might have maybe thousands of wells, 3,000 wells, and there are two ways to manage all that operation, right? You can either just have a lot of people just going to check the wells, and these wells are sort of scattered across an entire country, like thousands of kilometers apart. So you can do that, or you can instrument those wells, right? Put gauges and everything, and have a software application that's able to read all the readings that are coming from the wells, right? And then you can be notified in real time when there's a problem, and then you can take action, from the solution, etc. So this is sort of, this is sort of digital transformation project that I was involved in, right? So it was fun, very complex, and a lot of times these companies, they have their own existing IT landscape, right? They have databases that have different information. So we sort of come in and plug into that landscape because, for that system to work, for example, you need to be able to, first of all, you need to build a digital oil field model within the system, right? And to do that, you need to be able to get, data on the assets that are on the field. So for example, a well is 3,000 kilometers deep. That information is stored in a database. So you need to be able to plug into that database, integrate with that database to get that information that you need to build that well model. There are other information, there's other details as well that are in different places scattered across the entire company. So you need to be able to plug into the right sources, get the data to build the digital oil field model, and then that would allow you to monitor their entire operations, in a way that makes sense, right? Because your model is only as good as what it represents, right? So all of this to say that very complex systems, and these systems were the eyes of these oil and gas companies, right? So if your well is down, for example, they're not going to know unless your system tells you. So these were mission critical systems, right? So these were kind of projects or programs that we rolled out, very complex, a lot of challenges, and so I did that in Oman. And towards the end of my time in Oman, I got transferred briefly to Brunei, in Asia, and this was to roll out a similar solution for a big international oil and gas company. And then I came back to Oman, and shortly after my time in Oman, I got transferred to Dubai in the UAE. So when I was in Dubai in the UAE,
Sorry, Mukhtar, I just have to, I'm just trying to keep track here. So that, if I have to count, that's what, 4 transitions, literally?
Yeah.
In a span of how long?
So that, in a span of about 5 years or less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's serious transition. So I just wanted to keep track of that. Okay, so now you're in Dubai. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now, I mean, the story of my life. My life is full of transitions, and I think several people can relate to this. So
Right.
now I'm in Dubai, and in Dubai, this was a transition geography, but also my role as well.
Okay.
Now I sort of had this added responsibility. I was taking care of our entire Middle East and Africa region, right? The business, and so before I was more in a technical role, but now I was not only in charge of business operations, but I was also in charge of growing the business, right? So this was a dual role, and it was a team of 25 scattered across the entire region. So it was very challenging but very rewarding. I grew a lot, and in my role, because you're covering the region, it was a lot of traveling. So I North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, of course, and then Asia. So it was I love to travel. I love to learn about different cultures. So that satisfied that need. And also professionally as well, because technologies are implemented differently. You also, learn how to navigate different cultures in terms of, building relationships, communicating, stakeholder management. So that was fun for me as well. And I think I sort of bring that experience into WorkTipsPro as well, because the channel is also focused on communicating and stakeholder management as well. So yeah, and after Dubai, I guess I decided I've had enough heat and it's time to move to a cold place, and I came to Canada. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. My family is closer this way, so I've always wanted to come back this way. So now I'm in Canada, and I've been here for almost 4 years now.
It's almost like one opportunity begets another opportunity from one really cool project to another, inspiring a lot of these transitions. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
If I might ask, I'm interested about WorkTipsPro. What inspired you to start it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, Work Tips Pro. So there's several things. So one is that I felt like when I was growing in my career, like early on in my career, I didn't have a lot of guidance, right? I didn't have a lot of access to mentorship, sponsorship, all of that. So, I just felt, it would be nice for people that feel like they need guidance, but they don't have that. It would be nice for them to have access to it, right? So what I try to do with WorkTipsPro is that I try to present information in a bite-sized manner, and I try to make it as practical as possible. So if you listen to a video, this is something that you can implement right now, right? You don't have to, it's not very abstract. So and then I also try to deliver the message in a way that's engaging, right? So that's sort of my aim with WorkTipsPro, and that's sort of the reason. That's one of the reasons why I decided to start WorkTipsPro. And another thing I should mention is that I'm very passionate about teaching and public speaking. So it just sort of all came together, in this channel called WorkTipsPro.
Yeah, I really love the channel. By the way, I'm probably your biggest fan. I'm commenting all the time and asking you questions. So this is a great opportunity that you're with me now, so I can just pummel you with more questions. So I'm just joking, but the first thing comes to mind is, we all have this plethora of tools and tips and methodology. What are some that you rely on and that you've shared on your channel or you're going to share? Like, is there any favorite tips? Speaking of tips.
Yeah, speaking of tips, yeah, I guess you alluded to this. So there's a video that I did on building habits. So I think that one of the best things that we can do as human beings is to learn how to build just positive habits, right? And there's a video that I have on there on how to build habits. I'm a big fan of this habit stacking method. It's very simple. When I first read about it, I was like, oh my goodness, how come I haven't been doing this for a long time? So it's very, very simple, and it basically uses habits that you already have established, right? And it's just a matter of spotting the new habits somewhere in between there. So I think number one is building habits, building good habits. That's very good. And in this time that we find ourselves in, this pandemic, I think that another thing that is very important is just learning to rest.
Okay.
And for me, that's really big. And this might be a video that I might do. I'm thinking about it. But I find that, like, I'm a very, very action-oriented person. So I'm always thinking about what's next. I have my to-do list, and I get satisfaction in just crossing things off my to-do list. But what I'm trying to do now is to be deliberate about rest, right? So I come up with my to-do list, and on there is also what I'm going to do to rest today, right?
Oh,
I find
that is fantastic.
Yeah, so it's something that I've just started trying, and I find that it's quite effective. Because what happens is that I'm done with my to-do list. At the end of the day, I'm exhausted, and I just, okay, what's the path of least resistance? Maybe just turn on Netflix and binge watch, and then you don't feel as good. You don't feel well rested, right? So but being deliberate about, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and that just, I think that helps you be intentional about rest, and it also ensures that you don't forget about rest, because sometimes what can happen is that you're just working through your to-do list and you forget about rest, right? And then you start the next day and it's the same thing, and then you start the next day, and then you start to feel like you're burning out, right? So I think the second thing I would mention is be intentional about rest. So those are the two things: build good habits and be intentional about rest.
Yeah, I love the first one, the habits. We can always get better at that, but I never thought of the rest component. Matter of fact, I've often built a schedule that has something to do more work, like use this time to research, use this time to, try to brainstorm. But that is a fantastic idea about rest. I think I might have to try that. And would you even recommend like end of day, beginning of the day, middle of the day, or are you still piecing that together?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still experimenting. I'm a big fan of just experimenting and improving as we go along. So I know people recommend, even if you have 15 minutes in between maybe calls or whatever, just being deliberate about what you do to rest, like that adds up throughout your day. And of course, there's at the end of the day you unwind. For me, like what I'm doing right now is being intentional about what I do towards the end of the day, just so that I feel good about what I did to rest, right? Instead of the day just went by, I'm not sure what I did, but I don't feel rested.
I have a different kind of question now for you. Specific to the office, like you've given us insight into the creation of WorkTipsPro, techniques for rest, and to really level out how we progress. I'm intrigued by the office and the changes to the office as a result of the pandemic that we're in, people working remotely and so forth. From your perspective or line of sight, what would a post-COVID office look like? What do you anticipate what it'll look like?
That's a good question, and predictions are quite they're quite a gamble, right? Because a lot of predictions don't end up coming right. But I would say from my research, what I have seen is I think there's several camps. The idea that many companies are going to be 100% remote. As a matter of fact, there's some of these leading tech companies have said that they will be full-time remote. But you also have another camp that says you can't really replace that in-person face-to-face component. So there are other people that say, or there's another school of thought that says, okay, it's going to be more of a hybrid model, right? Maybe 3 days away, 2 days in the office. And there are also other people that cannot work remotely, right? Let's not forget that there are people that are not working right now because their job does not allow them to work remotely, right? So I think we're gonna see a mix, right? I think we're still trying to figure things out. I think there's still gonna be a lot of experimentation. But I do know that, for companies that were, just 100% in person and they've sort of adapted to this new model, maybe they will end up, using a hybrid model. So I do see a change, in terms of some people that adopt a hybrid model, but there are some people that, cannot operate in, without being in person. And then there are some companies that have already said that they will be 100% remote, right? So I don't know if I answered your question, but so there's going to be a little bit of both everywhere.
Yeah. No, you answered perfectly. I'm curious to know, how did you transition during this period? Like, what's your work environment like? I mean, I saw some of it on your channel, but what is your is it that mix that you're referring to?
Yeah, well, so mine, I'm one of the lucky few that can actually work 100% remote. So before the pandemic, I was operating in a hybrid model. I would go into the office for 3 to 4 days a week and then work remotely 1 to 2 days a week. So the transition was quite easy for me. When things get back to normal, I really do value face-to-face interaction. So when things do get back to normal, I see myself going back to a hybrid model.
So Mukhtar, I really enjoy your stuff. How can people get a hold of you or get in contact with you or learn more?
Yeah, so they can follow me on YouTube, right? So if you go on YouTube, my YouTube channel is WorkTipsPro. right? So if you just type in WorkTipsPro, you should be able to see my YouTube channel. So you can, subscribe, and I usually try to release videos every week, right? So that will be one way to get a hold of me. I'm also available on LinkedIn, and I'm active on LinkedIn, so you can just send a connection request, and I'm more than happy to connect.
Well, you are like a master of transition, Mukhtar. If I had to call back your story, starting in the energy sector, traveling a variety of different locations, all mostly hot, and then transition to Canada, and then also creating a YouTube channel, which is I assume is a transition in itself, and then your work environment. Shawn, I'm not sure if you have any other questions, but I've been thoroughly enjoyed this, Mukhtar, because I've been a fan ever since we connected at a Be Future, I believe, conference. But after that, I saw your channel and I was really hyped from that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, no, it's just this conversation here, just learning about your story, your transition, and I really see like one success kind of grew into another, and another, and almost a sense of trying something new, or like taking our core knowledge and applying it and making something really exciting, and it begat another success and another from there. So I'm taking notes, and I'm really inspired by your story. So thank you again for your time.
No, thank you for having me, and I really enjoy your channel. I watched the episode with Jonathan, and
Right.
I really like what he mentioned about just being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think that ties hand in hand with transitions, because it's scary. Change is scary, but you just have to embrace that and know that on the other side of change is something beautiful. Either you learn from your mistakes or get success, right?
Cool. So there's another episode of As Is To Be. Thank you again, Mukhtar and Carl, as always. Yeah, so enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace.
All right. Peace.